Hey, it's Christian with St. Augustine TV. There's a small cottage tucked away in Vilano Beach that most people drive past without ever noticing. A modest old Florida structure sitting along a tidal creek. It was once home to Sinclair Lewis, the first American to win the Nobel Prize in Literature. The property sold recently and has been rezoned, possibly making way for its removal and redevelopment. Another piece of old Vilano may soon disappear. And that's the irony. Sinclair Lewis spent his entire career writing about what happens when communities lose sight of what made them special in the first place. Not in some dramatic fashion, but through 1,000 small decisions. A shortcut here, a compromise there, a little more growth, a little less character, a little less beauty. Until one day people wake up and realize they live somewhere entirely different. This is what Lewis wrote about 100 years ago. Most people know Sinclair Lewis for his novels Main Street and Babbitt. Those books weren't really about small towns. They were about conformity, something Lewis considered dangerous. They were about communities becoming so focused on growth, status, and appearances that they stopped asking difficult questions. Lewis noticed that Americans often worshiped progress without ever defining what progress meant. More houses, more roads, more businesses, more people, more development. And it remains the question of St. Johns County today. Nobody can honestly deny what has happened here. The county has experienced extraordinary growth. New subdivisions stretch across former farmland and forests. Commercial corridors expand every year. Traffic grows. Infrastructure struggles to keep pace. Residents routinely debate whether the character of the county is being preserved or generically replaced. Those concerns are common in public discussions about growth throughout the region. Here's where Lewis would challenge us. He would not ask whether growth is good or bad. That's too simplistic. He would ask whether growth is serving the community or whether the community is serving growth. There is a difference, a profound difference. Growth can strengthen a place or it can consume it. Lewis spent his life mocking what he called boosterism, the civic habit of declaring everything wonderful while ignoring obvious problems. There is a tendency to celebrate every new project as progress simply because it is new. The assumption that bigger is automatically means better. He saw that mindset everywhere in America. And if we're honest, we see it today. Every development, commercial or residential, is marketed as an improvement. But who asks whether it contributes to beauty? Who asks whether it strengthens local culture? Who asks whether it leaves future generations with something worth inheriting? These are the questions that matter most. Drive through parts of St. Johns County today, and you can find developments that look remarkably similar to developments outside of Dallas, Phoenix, Atlanta, or Charlotte. Homogenization. Uniqueness is lost. The sense of place and identity become weaker. Lewis noticed this long before most people. He saw America becoming a nation of interchangeable communities, places losing their distinctiveness in exchange for convenience and uniformity, places becoming products, becoming brands, becoming investments, instead of becoming homes. Perhaps nowhere is this tension more visible than St. Augustine. The city possesses something that no American community can claim: more than 4 centuries of history. Spanish, British, Minorcan, African American, and American influence. Architecture, traditions, stories. A sense of place built over many generations. Yet preserving this heritage is difficult. It requires restraint, it requires stewardship, and stewardship has become an unfashionable idea. We talk constantly about property rights and economic growth, but stewardship asks a different question. Not what can I get from this place, but what do we owe it? What responsibility comes with being its temporary caretaker? That idea would have resonated with Lewis. Despite his reputation as a cynic, he wasn't really a pessimist. He criticized because he cared. He mocked materialism because he believed communities could do better. He believed culture matters more than most people realize. His satire was rooted in hope that people might choose thoughtfulness over conformity, beauty over expediency, character over convenience, stewardship over exploitation. Which brings us back to this little cottage in Vilano Beach. The house itself is not the point. Buildings come and go is what its disappearance symbolizes. Every community eventually faces that same question. What deserves to be preserved? Not because it's profitable, not because it's efficient, not because it's new, but because it tells us who we are. A century ago, Sinclair Lewis sat here in Vilano Beach and observed America. Today, the question is whether we are willing to observe ourselves, because the future of St. Johns County will not be decided by population growth or zoning maps or development applications. It will be decided by something much simpler, whether the people who live here think of themselves as owners or stewards. Owners ask what a place can do for them. Stewards ask what they can do for the place. And every great community is ultimately built by stewards. I'd like to hear from you. Are we being good stewards of St. Johns County and St. Augustine? Comment below.